behalf of Capital Club, where I head the government committee here in the club, I would like to welcome you to the COP28 workshop that we're having today. And this workshop, we're doing it in partnership with so many organizations and entities, federal, local government level, UN, and other entities. So, and this is the beauty of Dubai. The beauty of Dubai is that we have, everyone is working towards a common goal, and this common goal is for the best of humanity. We're very blessed that we're hosting COP28. We're very blessed to have a very active private sector that works very hard to make sure that the dreams of having a more sustainable future is coming true. So, working also in Dubai Land Department and Real Estate Regulatory Agency, which is my second hat, along with ARISE, which is the Private Sector Alliance Network of the UNDRR, we've been working in the last 2 years since COVID started on how to make our urban environment ready for a crisis and disasters. So how to make sure that our built environment is ready for that. And we've seen recently the earthquake that took place in Turkey and Syria. That was a call-up for a lot of us to really take action and be ready for such disasters. The frequency of disasters have been doubling in the last decade. The consequences of disasters, the death numbers, the financial economic cost is huge. And that's what the same conversation we were talking about today, that in Abu Dhabi we had an event for the media people on resilience, that resilience should be thought of as a value added thing rather than a cost. So how much we invest in resilience and how much we invest in sustainability is definitely going to be reflected back on our economy, our country, our people. So the resilience tool that we worked on as UNDRR ARISE network in the UAE, we developed a resilience tool for built environment. And this has been actually piloted on about 3 to 4 buildings here in the UAE. Dubai Police is also leading resilience. So there is a resilience hub, and this is another entity. So I work 2 days a week in Dubai Police with my colleagues there. So we've done a lot of work on resilience. There is a resilience hub there that is working on resilience. The government is committed to resilience and sustainability. The private sector is committed. The academia, today we have also our partner from Abu Dhabi address, and ThinkProb, who is also doing capacity building in resilience and urban resilience. So we've got the private sector, the academia, the government, all working toward making our economy more resilient and more sustainable. So on behalf of the Capital Club, on behalf of Dubai Land Department, RERA, Dubai Police, UNDRR, ARISE Network, all the entities who are part of today's event, I would like to welcome you to this event. And let's talk about actions. I always say that people are sick of talks, people are sick of talking about goals and commitment without putting that into action. So let's talk about actions. Real estate is 40% of CO2, right? Real estate is 70% of the impact on the environment. So let's make sure that we are taking that into account. So thank you so much, and looking forward to having a great event today. Thank you.
COP, as you know, is an international climate meeting that happens every year, held by UN. So this year it's happening in UAE. If I'm not mistaken, the dates are first 2 weeks of December, starting November 30, I think. So within COP, there are 2 main streams, work streams. One is the negotiated work stream, and then the other one is the non-negotiated. I believe a lot of you are aware of the negotiated side of COP, which is, all the states that are party to the Paris Convention, they get together. It's a process, right? So where every year they come together, they negotiate, progress the agenda on climate. So this year, for example, the big items that are, and there are like 160 items, but the big items on the negotiated list are, have we reached 100 billion from the developed countries to the developing countries in assistance? This has been, 10 years since we said we will do it. How do we operationalize the loss and damage funding for countries, poor countries that are facing the disastrous effects of climate change? And then the other item is how do we double the adaptation financing available for adaptation? So those are some of the big items that are going to be negotiated come COP. So this happens over the 2 weeks. People get together and we'll know what comes out of it only when the COP finishes. Now there is the other pillar, which is the non-negotiated side. That's where I'm coming from. So this is also called as the presidential agenda. So what the Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, for example, wants to leave as the legacy, right, of what UAE has accomplished in this space. So under the non-negotiated side, there are various teams. I come from the finance partnerships team. And within that, I think the overarching goal here is, as the speaker before me also talked about, I think the idea is how can we act, right? As Dr. Sultan calls it, this is a COP of action. So we want to do something, we want to implement something that's tangible, not another report, not another theoretical framework, but the idea top down is some, action, right? So within finance, we are looking at various ways of mobilizing finance for climate action. So there is work being done on pushing IFI reforms and IFI MDB reforms. There is work being done on practical tools and initiatives, such as setting up of vehicles that can actually mobilize at scale climate financing in the global south. There is work being done on carbon markets. Again, the idea is such that the private finance can come into these spaces, not in bits and pieces, but at scale, right? So that's the overarching goal here. What else can I say? I guess if you are interested in getting involved with COP, please reach out. There are many ways of getting involved. Obviously, on the non-negotiated side, we are working on many initiatives. But come COP, there is also this 2-week event where you can physically showcase your initiatives, get involved in some of the panels and roundtables, et cetera, that's happening. So it's also an event where you can get involved, platform your initiatives, and you can also get involved or plug into one of our initiatives that we are working on. So I welcome you all to reach out to us and get in touch with us. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so honored to be representing United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction today, and allow me first to thank RERA, address also FIAPSI for this opportunity to come together and showcase the important role the private sector is playing to build resilient communities. The United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reductions work closely with the private sector through its network, which of course was the first private sector for DRR launched in the region. It was in the United Arab Emirates. Also, I am glad to have Dubai Resilience Hub represented today here. Dubai Resilience Hub is the city that showcase the community's ability to become resilient, leading and supporting other cities to join the Making Cities Resilience program that the United Nations Office leads on at a global level. And here in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai was the first one to be announced, and then Sharm el-Sheikh was the second one prior to COP28. So allow me to as well shed the light on the strategic approach for United Nations for Disaster Risk Reduction Office towards COP28. Our main agenda focuses on loss and damage, mitigation, climate adaptation, and private sector engagement, and also investing in DRR. And that's where your role becomes very crucial, and your engagement is important for our success. The other thing is related to the Early Warning Systems for All initiative that was launched by the Secretary General during COP27. Of course, the Early Warning Systems for All initiatives promises the world with having systems in place, and especially in countries in need, by 2027. We are referring to a lot of contribution from the private sector, from the government, from the existing industries that are contributing to the development of these systems, but yet, of course, the gap is huge, and therefore we need to work more together to make sure that we are able to have this initiative implemented by 2027. In addition to that, I would like to highlight more about the fact that your contribution to the network of the private sector will enable us to present ourselves at the COP28 and make sure that the President Office for the COP28 also is capable to showcase the championship and the initiatives that they are leading in. In COP27, we had the opportunity to have the UAE pavilion providing a great space for us, a great platform for all the parties, whether it is from the private sector, civil society, the youth, and we are also relying this year at COP28 on the government of the United Arab Emirates to support the participation of all parties to make sure that we are all capable to deliver one message, aiming to develop resilient communities and making sure that our future takes into consideration the most vulnerable people. I thank you again for this opportunity and looking forward to working closely with all of you. Thank you so much.
Every year, every presidency appoints a climate champion. And this year, COP28 presidency has appointed Her Excellency Rassan al-Mubarak. And last year, COP27 presidency appointed Dr. Mahmoud Mohildin. So we work as a champions team in support of the objectives of the presidencies. So that's why it's more a team that supports the continuity and brings a mobilized action in a way that can be continued long-term, but also very much emphasizing, let's say, the strategic direction and the focus of each presidency. You know? So we are not part of the presidency team, but we work in support of the main priorities that are from the partnership engagement, not from the negotiating engagement, because we do not have a role on the negotiation process. And we are more an arm to help articulate or mobilize actors in support of the climate objectives, in this case from the Paris Agreement, though, to increase, to stimulate that ambition loop that is going to be engaging all actors, businesses, financiers, cities, regions, etc. The role of both champions that we have this year is to mobilize and support organizations towards this increased ambition and action, very much focused on implementation, to bring the emphasis on system transformation, because again, it's not about only one sector or only one solution, but what is the contribution that we can actually deliver in regards of system transformation and support. We are working with the UNFCCC, we're working with the presidency, we're working with a set of actors that one way or another as well engage with the governments in the implementation of those solutions. We work with very much mirroring the three objectives of the Paris Agreement in regards of mitigation. So we have, of course, a portfolio on mitigation, catalyzation, mobilization of actions towards net zero. And everyone can really agree with me that is a highway, decarbonization, a very clear what we need to do for different sectors. But it's like one road. Then we work on adaptation, which is totally different. We're not talking about one variable. We're not talking about one solution. We're talking like a tree of many different branches of opportunities, how to transform food systems or water systems or human settlement systems or infrastructure systems, etc., that can actually enhance adaptation and resilience opportunities. So this is more about the multiple entry points so that we can actually accelerate that. And very much, of course, having a people-centered focus is here the combination of both, the solution implementation, but as well what it means to people. At the end of the day, who is going to be resilient are people and nature. And in that sense, how we can tackle and accelerate, bring more tangibility to adaptation. And finance as an opportunity as well, a key enabler to facilitate mitigation and adaptation. So we also have a very strong, let's say, team and work program in regards to accelerating finance. Mobilize and align, work on system transformation, work on accountability tracking progress. Those are three main objectives across mitigation, adaptation and resilience, and finance. So we work then for mobilize and aligning at the level of campaigns. That's why we have global campaigns that actually helps accelerate the action. The Race to Resilience is the campaign related to adaptation and resilience. At the level of system transformation, we work with agendas, which is more about what are the solutions, where we need to be, how fast are we going there. And the Sharm el-Sheikh agenda is more an agenda of system transformation that was actually brought by the interventions and inputs with civil society, businesses, financiers, in what are the main solutions where we need to actually focus so that we see increase on adaptation and resilience. And that's the focus of this, is an agenda that is not a one-year agenda, it's an agenda until 2030. And it has a little bit of history in regards that it really started already in 2020 with an opportunity of how we can actually advance the resilience pathway. And I guess I can focus on the next slide, which is easier. So we identified these 30 solutions. Each of those solutions have a specific target where we know if we are accelerating restoration and protection of mangroves by certain amount, by certain year, we're going to be able to actually accelerate adaptation in a certain way.
One of the things which we're seeing, which is unfortunate these days, is the leading with aftermath of the impact. People being reactive, regions being reactive, organizations being reactive, analyzing the impact, and then searching for solutions. How can you describe this approach?
Well, in the insurance context, it's the way it's been from the beginning. An event happens, a contract is fulfilled, and somebody is reimbursed. We've waited. I mean, indemnification is built around somebody actually suffering a loss.
Yes.
And then you paying it back. And it's really the way even government spends its money. About 87, 90% of government and humanitarian funding for disaster-related expenses is post-event.
Yes.
It's recovery.
Exactly.
And I'd say the number is probably even higher for insurance companies because we, by definition, we pay out after a contract. So it is the way it has, quote, always been.
Yeah.
In some ways. I'd also say it's primarily a rich country's game.
Yes.
And if you look at insurance penetration, I mean, for insurance to work, a lot of people have to buy it. And right now, I think the OECD average is about 9.4% penetration.
Wow.
Within the GCC, it's about 1.9. And UAE is 3.2. An interesting but pretty irrelevant fact is Luxembourg is 34%. So I don't know. There's some really good insurance agents in Luxembourg selling it. Now, this system has traditionally worked with idiosyncratic risks. What I mean by that is each of us have a different risk profile.
Yeah.
And insurance companies can then pool us as risks so that the diversification benefit of that pooling allows you to take a loss here, but not a loss there, take a small loss there, a big loss in the back, but it plays out. As the risk becomes systemic, and we're all facing the same exposure, the ability of the insurance sector to pool and share and spread that risk, the ability of the insurance sector to incentivize the type of risk reduction behaviors it can in some policies becomes quite challenged.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the traditional role of the insurance sector, I would argue in the climate context, is being fundamentally challenged.
Yeah.
And there's a saying, and I don't know if it translates well, so apologies if this is offensive, but there's often a description of the insurance sector as the canary in the coal mine. What they mean by that is 100 years ago, men would go down underground, they'd bring a canary in a cage, and if the canary died, the men knew to get the hell out of there because there was a gas, there was something that they couldn't smell that was dangerous that the bird picked up first. Many view that role as the insurance sector's role in society. We see risks, we understand risks, we have the data, we have the aggregation of experiences that no single individual company or individual person has. That is being challenged in the climate context as well, because we have typically a 12-month contract that is heavily both regulated and highly competitive. So the pricing of that is a challenge, and we have a lot of insurance people here who probably compete against each other every day. So the traditional fashion of kind of waiting for the event to happen and paying the claim is simply not going to be enough in the climate context.
Yeah,
and if we do that, we're already starting to see markets, particularly climate exposed markets around the world, Australia and the United States. It was just a very high profile one, withdrawal from candidly the largest market in the United States, California, because of wildfire risk. As the exposure goes up, insurers can reprice because of the 12-month contract. And there's a disclosure framework out there called TCFD, the Task Force for Climate Financial Disclosures. And most insurance companies, large ones, particularly those in the room, I'm sure, have filed, and and I was part of one of those companies who did it. They've all been quite honest, transparent, and responsible to say physical risk is not a big challenge of ours because we can reprice our contract or withdraw capacity. And that's what we're seeing happening around the world.
Yeah.
So the traditional mechanism that insurance has provided to pool and share risks and send incentives is simply being challenged. If we don't start to see more focus on reducing the risk,
yeah.
our ability to finance the risk is going to be further challenged.
How can being proactive also get people more resilient and adaptable? If you can share some of those, like quick research or analysis.
I think even Mohammed opened up by saying it's a value, right? Understanding that investing today and reducing risk saves lives, saves money, but it's hard to quantify, and it's hard to give a return for something that doesn't happen 10 years from now.
Yes.
It simply is a challenging economic proposition to make. So there are studies. The insurance industry is full of studies. Zurich, who's in the room, uses 5 to 1, meaning for $1 invested, you save $5.
Wow.
The US government, where I live, uses 6 to 1. There's an organization called the National Institute for Building Science, NIBS, in the US, that will show you a range between 4 to 1 for a retrofit to 12 to 1, meaning $12 saved for every single dollar spent on building codes, the adoption and enforcement of building codes. So the proof is there. The economic argument is there. It's really the finance to get behind that's the challenge. Now, we've been talking about numbers here. What we haven't spoken about is the human element.
Yes.
There are ways by investing we can actually avoid human misery. And I mean, the stories you were telling me earlier today are very compelling as well about the comparability between climate crisis and what you've seen personally in war-torn areas. So, we can never and should never lose, sight of the human dimension of what we're talking about here too. And anything we can do to avoid some of the misery that happens around disasters, we should be doing as well.
Where do you see the private sector's role in achieving this or part of this agenda or the whole agenda?
If you're insurance, it's down here in this corner, but it's also everywhere else. It doesn't matter what sector you're in. I mean, there is an exposure to your business model, to your operational model, across the board here.
Yeah.
Food security, water quality, human capital, supply chain exposure. The list goes on. Extreme heat, which you certainly have here. Feels today, but I know today's a mild day, right? So, so the role of the private sector is fundamental to this. I mean, the days of thinking that government is going to step in and somehow protect all its people from physical risks, I think those days are done and gone. I think the risk has become so complex and so interdependent, so international, that, and candidly, you know, how should I put it? You know, we all kind of contribute to the risk. So the role of the business sector really is to start to truly understand the ecosystem that surrounds your profitability. You know, where are your exposures? And then what are you doing to harden that ecosystem? Who are you working with? This game of climate resilience in particular is an ultimate team sport, because no single company is going to go out there and somehow resolve the climate risk issue on its own. So understand the risk.
Yeah.
Really do your homework. You can work with an insurer. You can work with others. You can certainly work with Marsh McLennan, and we know this stuff well. And then harden it. You know, understand that you don't have 10, 15, 20 years, because sometimes the solution takes 3, 5, 7, 10 years to implement. So you really need to start this work now. And I think working in the collaborative fashion that the UN tries to encourage is really the most effective way to do it. The inclusion of insurance on this slide, well, that's easy. It's just a box on a PowerPoint, right? But the inclusion of insurance in the Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda is the first time the insurance industry has been recognized and acknowledged in a formal COP communique. Think about that. The industry that is fundamental to risk bearing in the global economy has never really been recognized as a key player in climate change, adaptation, and risk management. So last year was the first time, right alongside government and private investors, that there was a call to action for the insurance sector to step up and deliver its capabilities in perhaps ways that have never been done before. I think if I recall, and Marcia, I think, has a better recollection than I do, but I think really where we came together was a discussion about how this is not the first time the insurance sector has faced, or the world has faced, something like this. The story I love to tell is in the late 1800s, so little history lesson here on a Tuesday afternoon. 1892, actually, it was the World's Fair, the Expo, in Chicago. And for the first time ever, there were going to be the large-scale deployment and use of electricity. So the President of the United States was going to be traveling to Chicago, and he was going to press a button, and an entire neighborhood in Chicago was going to light up in electricity. The insurance sector thought, maybe we should take a look at this. So they sent a risk engineer from MIT out to Chicago a few weeks before the button was pressed. And he took a look at it and said, ooh, these little wires create fire. Most buildings, most homes, most factories are made of wood. Maybe this is not a good idea. So rather than go run back to Boston, though, and say, hey, I've got another underwriting factor, let's raise everyone's prices if they've got electricity, the insurance industry didn't do that. The insurance industry realized that electricity was a social good and that this was a safety issue, not an insurance issue, a safety issue. So they created something called Underwriters Laboratory. And I will guarantee you, you go around the room, you go home, whatever, look at any electrical device you have, it'll have a little UL tag that basically says the insurance industry has guaranteed that this device is not going to start a fire in your house. The insurance industry literally made the world safe for electricity. Pretty impressive for the insurance people in the room. Pat yourself on the back, because you're part of an industry that has done that over and over and over again. And what we were on the phone one day with the third person named Jorge Gastamunde, who's become a dear friend and known Marcia forever. They were negotiating. You weren't a negotiator, but you guys knew each other forever. That's when I think we had kind of a come together moment where we said, wow, how can we do the same thing for climate, right? And I think that's what really led to these type of dialogues, and it really is what led Marsh McLennan to invest in my time and others' time to kind of reach out to its insurance network, which is massive, to really start to talk about the need for us to expand, not abandon risk transfer, but to expand our view of how we can make a difference when it comes to climate risk.
The ambitious goal for this initiative is to mobilize 3,000 insurance companies, capture 50% of the insurance sector, and launch or continue 50 projects. How are you going to achieve that?
Adaptation, as opposed to mitigation. So what is climate mitigation? It's a money game, and it's a technology game, and then it's a transmission game, meaning can we get enough money to finance, I don't mean to make this sound simple, Anusha, I know it's not, but can we collect enough money to finance the right technologies and then deliver those locally to move the reductions down? You could do that on a global level. Like you can collect all the money in London or New York or Dubai and drive it in a way, and that's exactly what Anusha said, they're trying to do scale, right? On the adaptation side, it's local. It is hyper local. It is which side of the river, can you plant a marshland on? It is, how hot does it get in this neighborhood versus that neighborhood? Oh, that hill has shade on this side, but not on. It is so hyper local that the only way to do this is for these type of discussions, which is why, there are whiteboards here. So if you're nervous about actually having to work here, get really nervous because, we're going to turn the tables here and ask you all to do some thinking for a bit here because, we are not going to solve this at a few insurers getting together and coming up with a framework and saying we've now resolved adaptation. It's going to be local partnerships focusing on local perils, doing local things and implementing them, not, again, taking action locally, right? That is the only way this can get done. And there are a lot of wonderful examples of insurers already taking a leadership role and recognizing that risk transfer isn't the only role we have, right? And I know Nadia's here with Zurich. I used to be with Zurich, so I know a little bit about it. But could you talk a little bit about the flood resilience program that Zurich has had in place now for 10-ish years?
Yes, and it's extending, yes. Thank you. Yeah, so Zurich Insurance is collaborating with NGOs and academia, specifically focused on flood resilience and building tools to help communities become more resilient towards floods. And they're currently active in 9 countries and looking to expand. And all of these tools are made available publicly on the website, so it's not something that is being hoarded. It's really made, there's a wealth of knowledge and data available about natural catastrophes that is being collected and then put to use to help communities become more resilient.
Wow. So this is one of the shifts in the insurance way of doing things.
Yes, exactly. And it's sharing data.
Yeah.
I mean, we're notorious for not sharing data, right? Data is our bread and butter. It's our widget, right?
Yes.
It's our competitive difference. So the openness of that, the focus on risk reduction is really, really unique. There are a lot of other wonderful things happening as well. So there's an organization called the Insurance Development Forum that is extremely active with the V20. They are expanding really since last COP. So this is 6 months, old type of activity. They're expanding some of their risk modeling tools to all V20 countries. They're accelerating the deployment of that. They're embedding into, they've got 20 or so projects going on around the world where they're focusing probably more on sovereign, sub-sovereign type of pooling mechanisms. But they're going back to those projects and looking, is there an adaptation game to be played here? They're looking at crisis finance. Is there a way to help move that number from 87% of humanitarian relief down to, by the way, the target in Sharm el-Sheikh is 50%. Think about that. 87% of the money today is post-relief, and the target by 2030 is 50. That's a lot of coin, right? That's going to make a difference as well. So there are efforts in Europe. There's a groundbreaking new dialogue between the EU and the insurance sector on what role it plays in adaptation. In the United States, the insurance industry has taken the lead in actually passing a law that creates a framework for how the federal government spends its money on resilience, bringing in social justice into the equation.
Wow.
And now we hope to bring more incentives for private sector investment. So the insurance industry is starting to step up over and over again in different markets with different approaches, all of which reflect local reality and local needs. And that's really what this campaign is about.
Yeah, which is amazing. So Francis, apart from insurance sector, where do you see the role of real estate developers or local government infrastructure developers in being proactive towards this goal?
Yeah, like I said a bit ago, I mean, this is a team sport.
Yeah.
So, and Mohammed was so right about his numbers about the built environment. This is going to require partnerships. This is going to require, our industry's capabilities shared with other industries' capabilities, with other government agencies' capabilities and authorities. It really needs to be a collaborative effort. So, I don't think the insurance industry can or ever would go off and come up with a sector solution without fully, deeply engaging that sector.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how brokers and underwriters feel about their clients, and it's quite deep and affectionate, right? They never want to abandon their client, right? So, I think this is really an opportunity for sectors to work together to jointly articulate, identify, use some of the UNDRR. I was thrilled to hear about some of the tools and the examples or pilots that you're doing here in UAE as well. I mean, this is a chance for us to scale what works, but we got to do that together.
For UAE, MENA representatives or people living here, governments here, any organization, any sector. And what specifically, if we want to narrow it down into the UAE MENA finance sector specifically also to shed the light on that, if they want to be involved in this RTR initiative, how they can be involved and what does it mean to them? Like what's, if you can give them insights so they are encouraged to just have a look, be curious about it.
Yeah, Marcia and I did this before 800 people yesterday, so I have no problem saying it again, and that is you can call one of us, right? Email us, call us, reach out to us, and we'll try to find a way to plug you into a discussion that's locally. But I mean, I think you probably know better than I know how you could plug into your local. I mean, I was impressed last week to read that the DIFC signed on to the PSI, the Principles for Sustainable Insurance. That seems to be an indication that your regulator, if you're the insurance company and you're DFIC regulated, they're looking to kind of push the envelope on sustainability solutions. And this is absolutely one of them that is core to the capabilities that we bring. So you've got a regulator that seems to be looking for things to do. You've got industry peers. I used to have more commercial roles. I know how tight this market is. You all here could decide how and what you want to do, right? You could start your own, series of discussions. Maybe do it in this room, for other times. And the circus is coming to you in a few months, right? November 30th is not far away, right? When you think about how much the world takes July and August off, right? We're almost in September, right? We were joking the other day, June? Oh, that means we're in September, right? We're coming. The world is coming here to see what you are doing on both mitigation and adaptation issues. So this is an incredible opportunity. You can run and hide. You can go off somewhere and stay away for the few weeks. Might not be a bad idea. Rent your place. Oh my God, could you make some money, right? Or, we could come up with some pilot solutions here in the region that make a difference and showcase them at the COP when the world is coming to see what's happening here.